I'm born in Kirkenes, 1954, grown up here, and I have almost lived in this community my whole life so far. The Germans invaded Norway because they wanted to avoid an invasion from the Englishmen. So they wanted to assimilate the Germans with the Norwegians, so that the Norwegians should have the same culture and educational whatever cases like in Germany, like the Nazis. The Nazis regime should be incorporated in the Norwegians. So they tried to in the first place, to be friendly with the people, to get acquainted with them, and to let them feel that the German soldiers were here as salvation, to help the Norwegian people against the Bolshevism from Russia. Well, quite early, I guess it was in 1941. The churches was almost closed, and the priest refused to give any service to the Nazis or the Nazi ideology, and so there was a split between the Germans and the Norwegian church, so they didn't cooperate. If they want to have a ceremony or so on, they use the Norwegian church, but in their style, in their Nazi style. So they transformed the church from the Lutheran Norwegian church to their own church within the Nazi ideology.
Okay, so they use the same church, but they just use different period.
Yeah. The resistance was in the beginning, when the invasion came in April 1940. There was a resistance in Norway, and the Norwegian soldiers laid down their weapons in June 1940, after a few combats in northern or middle part of Norway. The last combat was in Narvik area, and after that there was no more Norwegian official military resistance.
Okay.
It was only civil resistance during the rest of the years during World War II.
Okay, but because I saw this documentary, there's actually some people collaborate with Nazi as well, right?
Yes.
In the World War II. Yeah. But are they conscription, or they are just volunteers? Say, okay, I want to work for Nazi, or how does it work?
No, it was a Nazi party in Norway.
Okay.
So the Nazi party make a coup and took the power in the Norwegian parliament.
And it was the minority, or it was?
It was a minority.
Okay.
So it has been building up for several years before the Second World War. So they were ready when the Germans came to take the power. During the first period, it was most part of Norway. It was quite normal, but during a period after the resistance was beaten down, then the resistance grew up in the secrecy around in the villages and so on in the country, and and it was depending on how hard did the German intruders practice their kind of power to the people in the community. So some places there was quite normal life, and in other places it was quite different from the normal life, and in a way into the Nazi regime. And I guess in Kirkenes, in this area, there was a lot of Germans. Normally 1-to-1 German, Norwegian, and often there was 2 to 3 times Germans to 1 Norwegian. So there was a quite great impact on the society and the daily life for the people.
How do they communicate? Do they speak in German or in English?
A lot of them spoke in German, and during the Norwegian Nazi Party, they had members who spoke fluent German, and so there was a lot of other people, normal people in Norway, that could speak rather fluent German, and some German soldiers spoke maybe other languages like English or maybe a part.
But because they learn at school, or they've been forced to learn, or is
They
obligate?
No, the Norwegians, I guess they had learned some at school or during practices elsewhere in
But the main
Europe.
language, how they communicate, is German.
German, yes.
Not English that time.
No, not English, no.
Do they against to speak English because they are against British?
Yeah, that's Britain was in a way their enemy. So if you spoke English, you were on the other side.
So the language mattered in that time as well.
Yes, I guess so.
As
In
the
a
division.
way. Not. I don't can tell how much it mattered, but I guess there was a kind of matter in. They were normally they all were punished in a way. They get the sentence in after a trial, and they get sentenced with the bills they had to pay, or they had to go to prison. And the leaders of the Nazi party in Norway was executed.
Okay, but who were in the court? Is the international?
No, it was a normal Norwegian court.
Okay, and since when Norway doesn't have the death penalty?
No, it's they had it was in this period there was not a death penalty in Norway, but it was during this procedure after the war they had to impose it, and it was just for the war case.
Okay, so that's exception.
Yeah. Some of them did, yes. Some of the leaders in the Nazi party, they collaborated with the Germans, and they were interrogating the prisoners, and they were, they did what you call it, punishment, hard.
Yeah, torture.
Torture.
Okay, but that was, they learned that from the Nazi ideology, right? Before that, is it in a culture of, I don't know, for example, like Norwegian prison torture?
No, that's
No. So
no,
that is the Nazi ideology.
yeah, that came with with the war and the situation there with the Nazi and so on, the Nazi ideology and the German forces and the officers and so on. So, but even though some of the Norwegian collaborators could be worse in torture local inhabitants than the Germans themselves. I guess they had a quite difficult time during the first years after the war. But the Norwegian society were normalized quite early after the war. I guess in the early or the mid part of the 1950s, it was not forgotten, but it was yeah, it was they were forgiven, most of them, and okay, if you go back to it today to see what happened, a lot of historians and so on could say that okay, this was not fair, all of this, but it was, in the time it was done like that, and it was accepted.
Not fair of what, in which way? Like not fair because they've been pushed to, or?
No, it was collaboration. It was in a different way, in an ideology way, or in the normal life way, because like here in Kirkenes, there was a lot of Germans, as I said, but if you was going to supply your family, if you're going to work, the only employee was Germans. So you have to work, collaborate with the Germans to have work, to get money to feed your family.
So that time was, for example, like if you want to survive, you kind of need to collaborate with German.
In some way.
Especially in Kirkenes, because there's too many Germans.
Yeah, it was the whole society was controlled by the Germans.
Okay.
All factories or business and so on, most of them was controlled by the Germans. So you had to collaborate to get work, to get paid, to feed your family.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of women, they had to work with the Germans to do washing and so on, to get money to pay for themselves. But pay for the family.
That is not really collaborate, right? You just work for them as washing the clothes.
No, it's collaborating in a not non-ideology way.
So whoever collaborate with the ideology, they got a sentence. But the rest, they just forgive.
Most of them did not have any sentence after the war. So it was a different story, to say.
Okay.
They who were in the Nazi system by ideology, or they who were forced to collaborate with the Germans to survive, in a way.
Okay.
Yes, there was a strong focus on infrastructure in this area, because it was a build-up area towards the Operation Barbarossa, towards the Russians, who started there in June '41. So they had to build up this area in the infrastructure-messy way, to get the roads sufficient to transport their supplies, and so the harbor will be built up to support the ships coming in with supplies, and they started the plan to build a railroad from southern Norway up to Kirkenes.
Okay.
And there was a lot of infrastructure work in this way, by roads and the railway, by the prisoners of war. The Russian prisoners of war, Yugoslavian prisoners of war, and so on. They were set to work on this infrastructure project. they tried to, via the Norwegian Nazi Party, they tried to implement the Nazi ideology in school or in this society. And the teacher organization denied to do it. So 636 teachers were sent to force work from southern part of Norway, all of Norway, up to Kirkenes. So they worked here they have a prisoner.
The teacher prisoner is in that exhibition.
Yeah.
They are the one refused to teach Nazi ideology, so they're being sent to the. Is it called a concentration camp, or how do you call that?
Yeah, it was a kind of concentration camp. Yeah. In Elvenes. As I said, there was a lot of Germans in this community, and some of them was not in a way military aggressive. They was just working at the camp to order the supplies for the soldiers at the front, and so they were a kind of military civilians, and they some of them was not Nazi, and they cooperated with the Norwegians in a way. So, and there was a lot of young soldiers and so on, and there were connection between the soldiers and the female occupation, and they get and that was they get married, or they fell in love and so on. They get children and so on during the Nazi system and so on. Someone went to Germany or Austria to get the birth there and so on, and so there was a kind of what to say, a melting position between the German and the Norwegians. Yeah, because I guess in this area, as there was a lot of Germans, normally 1-to-1 or even more Germans than Norwegians. So you have to work together in a way to survive. So they had to live together in a way, because in other parts of Norway, in the big cities, the Germans was a small group, and the Norwegians was a quite big majority. So the Germans kind of disappeared in the society in this. So, but up here you had to stay with the Germans. The Germans occupied the houses. They had a big house. They took half of the rooms and so on, and they were in the society close to the Norwegian all the time. So you had to live with it in a way, and that's why the aftermath of the Second World War, in a way, figured this population as not nationalized enough, because they stayed with the Germans in a peaceful way. To keep the society working, families need to have income, and they only employee way to go is with the Germans. So the Germans paid very well. So
even in the wartime.
Yeah, they paid very well. So the Norwegian escaped from normal work, and would rather work for the Germans because they paid up to double.
Wow, this I don't know. I thought if it's the wartime, they exploit the occupier, but they actually pay better than
they pay
than
better
before.
than the Norwegian authorities. So the Norwegians had some problems to get the employees to do the normal work. were grateful to the Russian army who's liberated this area, and they stayed here for 1 year after they have liberated the area from October 44 until September 45. So there were rumors, why did they stay so long, why didn't they leave, had they plans to occupy permanently this area, but they redraw in September 44. And the situation in that period was quite easy or normal between the Norwegian and the Russian soldiers who stayed here. Some thousands of them, 5,000 I guess, around. So when they redraw and went back to Russia, they were saluted or as liberators to this area.
So they were perceived as the positive image.
Yeah, positive image, and that stayed for many years after. And there were a lot of monuments were raised both by the Russians and by the Norwegians after this liberation from the Russian, from the German.
What did they do during the year when they stayed here for?
Yeah, they stayed here for a year. They had there was a cooperation with the Norwegian authorities, which had to build up their system after the war, because there was nothing left. So they had to build up the political, the local official system in this area, and that was in connection with the Russians, because in a way this was an occupied area, and it was within the military regime. So the Russian general or the super officer, he had the authority to supervise the area. It's a lot of war situation, because this area was bombed by the Allies. The Russian bombed this area. It was our allies. So it was a kind of different, a different story. So when they came in and the Germans was thrown away, they went into this area which they themselves had destroyed, in a way, had bombed during 3 or 4 years. So it was a kind of how to call it,
after service.
Yeah, you can tell. But as you know, the local people, they felt this as a liberation from the Germans and the Nazi system, and the society, the local community was starting to build up again normal systems. Not just after the liberation, or the Germans has escaped further west. I guess there's kind of divided situation in the system or in the society, or because there is a lot of Russians living here. So and there's I guess there's a different story among them who is on the Putin side, or who is on the other side. So we have experienced that it's both of these groups here. So I guess our relationship eastwards is in a way parked. Okay, that was the situation before Crimea and Ukraine, and now it's quite another situation. So we stop at Crimea and Ukraine, and we freeze the situation. So we'll see what happens next on the other side, the Russian side, before we make any step further to try to build up again the confidence to the system on the other side. So I guess my generation or the next generation doesn't have the same feelings about the liberation. It's in the historical way, it has brought some other views into that situation than the liberation atmosphere. As far as I know, there was no political or any other way to build up a let's say a Soviet or a communism situation in this area. There was a lot of communists in this area during the war who was working as partisans, and they got let's say after the war there was a lot of communist members in the local authorities.
Cultural?
Culture in a way, because the Russians had their own culture, and they tried to spread it or divide it with the Norwegians, with culture in a way, some feasts and song and yeah. But I think the religious side has not been in focus in this area during historical times, because we have influence from the East, the Orthodox Church and so on, and it has been there from the 15th century and so on. So it's a kind of border between the Orthodox and the Lutheran side of this, but it's, I guess there hasn't been a real conflict in this area. So it's kind of normalized. Okay, you are Lutheran in this area, you are Orthodox on the other side, and we live together. Yeah, you know the story after the war, and as I said, there was a lot of children during this period born by Norwegian
And German.
girls and German soldiers or Austrian soldiers and so on, and during all the years after the war, you in a way try to normalize the situation, that okay, that was a war situation, so you fell in love with a nice German soldier, and no Austrian soldier and so on, you get kids and so on, and some were punished, they lost their Norwegian passport, and so they didn't get permission to come back to Norway after the war and so on. So it's a kind of dramatic history after it. But I think today we are we have this 80th anniversary of the liberation in October, and the historical society in connection with the historic or a historical society in Austria. There was a lot of Austrian soldiers here, and they were in a way not front soldiers, but they were camp soldiers. So they were working at the camp and for organize the supplies and so on. And they were in a way nice people. So they get connected with the locals and so on. And during this anniversary, we would like to try to normalize the situation, to get as we have experienced in Austria, they have not in a way got rid of the war situation, Second World War yet. They still have thoughts, they still have memories, they still have in a way bad memories of the Second World War and how their young lads occupied Norway. A lot of them died up there, and a lot of them had a connection with the Norwegian girls and so on, and in a way got a family. So in a way to try to flatten or to normalize this situation, that okay, that was a war situation. So we had to accept that special situation and in a way not free them for responsibility, but okay, you were in a way, many of them were not Nazi ideology, but they were forced to be. So we have to, in a way, normalize it.
I think when we see what happened, what kind of relationship between Israel and Germany now, it still gives some hope that Ukraine and Russia or Israel Palestine would have reached that kind of reconciliation in maybe 20 years, let's say.
Yeah, it's a kind of reconciliation yet. That's what we talk about, because, as you said, Russia and Ukraine, it's brothers, neighbors and so on who fight together. So, and when the peace will arrive, what then? What do you do then? How to reconciliation in society?
I think a leader is very important.
Yeah,
It's
at least.
actually
That's
all leaders.
Yeah, that's what you see today. If it's not for Putin and his regime, what could we have then? And that's not only in Russia, that's all over. Yeah, it's a kind of divided situation in the world. It was the social situation and the war situations, and the social situation was quite normal. So the war situation was quite another, and the Germans was in a way not in a war situation or a combat situation with the Norwegians in this area. So because we had no army here and we had no military, so the war situation was between the Germans and the Russians, and the locals were not a part of it. They just had to live with it and to make their living in a way that they can survive. Well, as you see during the history, if we go hundreds of years back in time, you know, that almost in the Roman time, then there was this. They have the emperor or whatever it was who was ruling. He could do whatever he wants with the masses or kill or whatever they did. It's a kind of back to the history.
The Roman time.
Yeah, or the Genghis Khan and so on. They came from the east and conquered Europe in a way, and they slaughtered people along the way and so on.
So you think we're going back to medieval?
Yeah. I thought about it. Is it the way that the world is turning back to the before the Middle Age or so on. Yeah. It's the same situation again when the herds come from different parts of the world and they captured new countries and they killed for nothing. And that's, I see a similarity to what happens some places today.
Yeah. Okay.
But I hope we live in a peaceful part of the world and we'll see what happens. I'm not afraid of the future yet.